This is the first module on macroeconomics for social impact. Now, why are we discussing macroeconomics as an enabler? Macroeconomics forms the backbone of our economy and is a significant enabler for understanding the underpinnings of social impact. The global development sector is prone to economic cycles, and development economics is a major pillar in forming policies and interventions for alleviating poverty, driving equitable education, sustainability, and much more. So this macroeconomic series will share an overview on the following topics. Now to gain more on evidence-based approach, do refer to the tutorials under statistics and impact evaluation. Now that's a very important topic in statistics and impact evaluation, and I suggest everybody you should read, we should go through that particular series. Now when we are talking about clarity on impact of macroeconomics, this particular module you'll understand the demand and supply equilibrium. That is actually the first module. In the whole series, you'll understand behavior economy over long run and short run. This is very important. And there are a lot of modules in this particular space. Now you'll have a better understanding of fiscal policy influences. You'll have a better understanding of monetary policy and monetary stabilization policies. Now that's very interesting that you should be having. That's very important when you understand the whole global arena. That gives you a better idea about the social impact which is going within the global arena. One of the most important aspects is inflation. So we'll understand social costs of inflation as we go forward. We'll understand a lot about development economics. We look at evidence-based framework at macro level, which I talked about. For that, of course, statistics and impact evaluation, a special series which I've started. You need to learn. The whole idea is like you want to learn how macroeconomics affects social good. So this series puts you on the forefront to give you a very good understanding of what's going on in the economy on a whole. Now, I talked about when you're looking at clarity of macroeconomics, the concept of demand and supply, both in the short run and long run, is very important. Interest rates and inflation, modern monetary and fiscal policies and their impact. Now, this is an introduction to stabilization policies. Now, this is going to be a mega series under this, but there's going to be looking at books for reference. There are two very important books: Macroeconomics by Greg Mankiw, which is the major book, and the other major book is Macroeconomics Policy and Practice by Mishkin. Now you could have these books or you could refer to any other book, but it's always good to have a textbook with you. When we are looking at macroeconomics as an enabler, just put in some of the specific aspects. Now GDP, which is real versus nominal, we have a topic which is going to be coming out next, is very important. Now what's very good, very interesting part is well-being. I suggest, although I've not covered New Zealand has a variable of well-being within the GDP. GDP means the total income or expenditure which is created within an economy through goods and services. Now there'll be a special module on that, and we'll come to that at a later date when the next module. Money market, which I've actually covered, is more about interest rates. This comes under stabilization. There'll be a lot of modules in that. That's a mega module. We'll be looking at open market operations, quantitative easing. It's very interesting. And the third, the labor markets and employment rate would also come in at a later date. But when we start understanding about economics, we need to understand models. So models are as good as assumptions. They are both, they are not laws of physics. They are as good as what you're going to be putting in as the exogenous variables, the variables that come from outside the model, which you're putting into a model. And the model is trying to explain, which is the variables that the model explains are endogenous variables. To give you a brief idea of what exogenous are and what you mean by endogenous variables. Brief example, let's look at the unemployment rate. Here I put business confidence index. There are a lot of factors which are affecting unemployment rate. We're keeping that constant. Now we're looking at business confidence index and putting a model to understand how it will be impacting unemployment rate, so which is endogenous. Business confidence index will be exogenous variable. A graph of the business confidence index of OECD, advanced countries, this collection of advanced countries. Now if we see how the graph, the business confidence index has gone from positive, it's gone down, so it's hovering between a range. Whenever you're looking at when it goes down, those are the years which we closely see are the years of recession. One is of course from 2008 and 2009. During that point of time was great credit crisis and the pandemic. So during that period of time, you see so there are expansion times and the recession times. So during the time of recessions, the unemployment rate is high, much higher as compared to the times when the economy is doing better. Here, this is just to give you a brief description. Now you have seen how the business confidence index is, and you clearly know during period of time how the unemployment rate was. From here, what we then understand is that when the business confidence index and economic business cycles are related to each other, so during the time of expansion, the business confidence index is positive or high as the demand for goods and services is more, so the unemployment rate is less. On the other hand, during the recession, the business confidence index dips. Usually there are layoffs and the unemployment rate increases. These are the times of recession, and I've seen the arrows when there is a positive times of the economy. At the airline model, in the airline industry model, you have exogenous variables and endogenous variables. Here the exogenous variables are safety, the safety of the passengers, and the cost of jet fuel. So these are the inputs when you're looking at the model, and the output of the model, we are looking at the price of an airline ticket or quantity of tickets sold. So we are keeping other variables constant in both these cases. And this is what the model is going to explain. Now, this model we are going to look in depth. Whenever you remember, when we are looking at cost of jet fuel, anything which is cost which goes to the input or the cost of ultimately the cost of goods or services would always be the supply curve. So this is something very important as we go forward. We're going to look at this again. Here we come to to understand the demand and supply airline model. One of the reasons why this model has been selected is that you have these two which are exogenous is safety and cost of fuel, which I've talked about. Price of an airline ticket is one endogenous variable. This other is number of tickets sold. So we are looking at two of endogenous variables, and we are taking two inputs. So two inputs and two outputs, and we are understanding the impact of safety of passengers and cost of fuel on price and quantity of airline ticket. Here we are trying in the airline industry model, we are trying to understand the effect of change in perception of safety of passengers and cost of jet fuel on the price of an airline ticket and number of airline tickets sold. Now we look at this model of demand and supply using the airline industry example. When you're looking at demand and supply equilibrium at QD is equal to QS, the price of the airline ticket adjusts so that the quantity supplied is equal to the quantity demanded. The demand curve is downward sloping, and as the price, which means like as the price of the airline ticket reduces, the number of airline tickets demanded increases. The demand curve is nothing but the relationship between price of the airline ticket and the number of airline tickets demanded, keeping safety of travelers or passengers constant. Now, when you look at the supply curve, it's upward sloping. The price of the airline ticket increases, the number of airline tickets supplied increases. The supply curve is the relationship between the price of the airline ticket and the number of airline tickets supplied, keeping the cost of fuel constant. Cost of fuel, whenever you're looking at, is the affects the supply curve, and when you're looking at demand curve, we have looked at the safety of the passengers. We look at the concept of market clearing. The price of goods and services are very different in the long run and short run. The prices of goods and services in the market, they quickly interact to demand and supply. The idea here is that it does not happen. The prices and wages they are pretty slow to react. Now you could look at example of automobile cars and in the labor market during the recession. They do not quickly adjust. The prices of the cars do not fall during the time of the recession. That's what we say. The prices are sticky in the short run. But out here, the example is we are taking the example to give you the example of retailers of global crude oil. Now, retailers of global crude oil also follow sticky pricey model. That is, if the prices of crude oil they really go up, they would not pass it on directly to the customers.